Today we talked about how to solve for the missing leg when using the Pythagorean theorem. Again, we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the length of the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side. So when I see the right angle here, I know that has to be c. And I'm just going to call this A and this B. The two sides that form the right angle are the legs. So here I have A squared plus B squared. B is 32, I square that, equals C squared. 32 squared. Again, you may use a calculator if you'd like. 32 squared is 1,024. And that equals 40 squared. 40 squared is 1,600. Because I know that 4 squared is 4, or 16, sorry. To solve for A, I have to do the inverse operation. I have to subtract 1,024 from both sides. When I do that, I get 576. The inverse of square is square root. The square root of 576 is 24. And so I then get 24 centimeters. And that answer makes sense too. Always make sure your answer makes sense. Alright, number 2. The side opposite the right angle is C, and it doesn't matter what I call A and B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared whenever you have a right triangle. A I call 21, B I call X, and C I call 29. 21 squared is 441. 29 squared, I think I know what it is, but let's just double check. 29 squared is 841. When I solve for x, I subtract 441 from both sides. X squared is equal to 400. I take the square root of both sides. I get x is equal to 20. That answer makes sense. The answer is 20 yards. Number 3. First, identify my hypotenuse. It's the biggest side opposite the right angle. And then I call my other two legs A and B. Doesn't matter which one. I know A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is 7. I square that. B is unknown. I'll just call it B this time. Sometimes I don't like to use B because it looks like a 6. C is 25. 7 squared is 49. I don't know what B squared is yet. 25 times 25 is 625. Subtract 49 from both sides. B squared, I have 625 minus 49 is 576. The inverse of squaring is square rooting. Square root of 576 is 24. So the answer is 24 kilometers. Over here, first I like to identify my hypotenuse. It's the side opposite the right angle. And then I have A and B. So I have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A, I will just leave it as an A this time. B, 14. And C is 50. I square that. A squared 14 times 14 is 196. 50 times 50 is 25 with 2 zeros. I now just do the inverse operation. I subtract 196 from both sides. 2,500 minus 196 gives me 2,304. I then do the inverse operation, square root, I get 48. So the answer is 48 kilometers. All right. I'm going to identify this as my hypotenuse, and then I have A and B. In a right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A is 15, I'll square that. B, I'm going to call x this time. C is 17, I square that. 15 times 15 is 225, plus x squared equals 17 squared. 17 times 17, in case you don't have it memorized, is 289. Now I'll subtract 225 from both sides. Again, I'm trying to get x by itself. Solving for x, 9 minus 5 is 4, 8 minus 2 is 6, x squared is 64. The square root of 64 is 8. So the answer is 8 yards. Again, if I'm going too fast, just pause it. Rewind. We have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. First, I'm going to identify my c is opposite the right angle, and then I have a and b. A is 18, b is x, and c is 30. I square 18. 18 squared is 324. I square 30. I know that 3 times 3 is 9, so this is 900. To solve for x squared, I get 324, subtract it from both sides. Inverse operation of addition. 900 minus 324 gives me 576. Which actually sounds really familiar. I had it right here. Square root of 576 was 24 here. It is still 24. So I have 24 feet. Next, I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The side opposite the right angle is 15. I'll call this A and B. So I have a squared plus b is 12 squared. 12 times 12 is 144. 15 times 15 is 225. Inverse operation, I subtract 144 from both sides. A squared equals 5 minus 4 is 1. It's 81. Square root of both sides. I get 9. The answer is 9 miles. I laugh because 9 miles is a long way. Alright, here. These two sides look very similar, but 41 is larger and it's opposite the right angle, so I know that's going to be my hypotenuse. My legs are x and 40. So I have a squared plus 40 squared equals 41 squared. A, B, C. I don't know what A is yet. 4 times 4 is 16 with 2 zeros. 41 squared is 1681. Inverse operation, I subtract 1600 from both sides. A squared is equal to 81. I take the square root of both sides, I get 9. The answer is 9 meters. Alright. Right angle Opposite is the hypotenuse, so I know that's A, or C, sorry, this is A and this is B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. My A is 15, square that. My B is unknown, I'll say it's X. My C is 39. I happen to know that 15 times 15 is 225. 39 squared I do not have memorized. 39 squared is 1521. I now subtract 225 from both sides as an inverse operation. X squared equals, I subtracted 225, you get 1296. When I take the square root, I get 36. So it's 36 inches. And last problem. First I identify my right angles here, so my hypotenuse is opposite, and I'll call this A and B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is 35, B is X, because we don't know what it is yet, C is 37, and so we'll use our calculator here. 35 squared is 1225. 37 squared is 1369. I will need to use inverse operations. I will subtract 1225 from both sides. X squared is equal to 144. Inverse operation of square is square rooting. I get x is 12. My answer is 12 centimeters. All right, I hope you had as much fun as I did.